Hey everybody! Woohoo! Preston made it back to the table before it went live. He was sitting down before the red button came on.
Oh, everybody roll.
That is.
So he gets an early introduction.
Yes.
Ninja style.
So y'all know Todd, you know me, because we're always doing our What Really Matters stuff. But this is Preston and Mahgan. These are some dear friends of ours. We're up here seeing our grandkids, which are their children. And we love them, so we're just visiting. But what we decided we wanted to do while we were here is we know that recently, over the last couple of years, y'all have realized that even though you had a really good marriage, there were some techniques and some things that y'all could learn along the way that's improved your relationship,
Right.
that you had no idea that needed. In fact, one of the things that you said to me, if everybody out there is watching, y'all remember when we did the
They're watching.
what's the song? What's the song?
What are you talking about?
The one that Tom played for me that really
Is this all there is? Or
is that all there is?
Right.
Yes.
She
And
watches.
so, well, because about the
Gold
time
star.
that we did that video, because Tom shared it, we had come up here for other reasons,
I was having surgery.
having surgery and helping and doing, and you said, you know, I thought that, and I'm going to say this, you and I discussed this
Yeah.
already, I didn't know that. I just thought that's all there was. We had this good marriage. And then I realized, after we've learned some stuff, that there's more to it. And it still hit me, just like the song did. It struck me when somebody says, is that all there is? And so, anyway, I've rambled a little bit. Y'all know we've shared with y'all how we've learned to communicate and how bad it used to be and things. But what are some things that you noticed
Wait a minute.
that...
Things were bad? What's going on here?
Oh, honey, I put you through
Oh,
hell
my
and
goodness.
back in the first 4 years. After that, it was all you.
The last 26 video.
It's all been you. So anyway, but seriously, I know y'all, there's got to be a couple of, I know you've learned several things, but there's been a couple of things that's made a big impact.
Well, I'd say first, like you said, like I thought we had a good marriage, and we did have a good marriage. But there were a lot of things that were broken that I didn't realize were broken in
Yeah.
communication.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't know, like I said, you don't know it's broken until you know it's broken.
Right.
And at that point, I was like, oh, I don't know this man at all, and he doesn't really know me because we just go through the motions. I was telling him today on our way home from vacation, said we're great business partners.
Mhm.
It was like we went into this as a business, and we're great. We can keep the business going. We keep our kids fed, alive some days. That's all, but we do a good job as business partners. But that was it.
Yeah.
There wasn't any intimacy because there wasn't any communication.
Yeah.
And so that's been a big thing for us of learning, like, communication doesn't, or a lack of, doesn't always look like fighting.
Yeah.
Because we never fought.
Right.
And I was always like, I think we have a great marriage. We never fight. And I was like, well, because you don't talk about anything.
Well, wouldn't you say, though, that y'all talked? You talked all the time.
Very surface level talk.
But
Yeah.
yes, but so you felt like you were communicating, though.
Yeah, we were talking, just
Yeah.
words, but we weren't actually. There was no real emotion, no, like she said, intimacy to it.
Yeah.
There was nothing of substance. It
Yeah.
was just, like she said, business partners.
How
And,
was your day? Mine was great at work. I did. How are the
That's
kids?
it.
Yeah.
And you think that just because there's no fighting, just because it's not loud,
Right.
but it wasn't peaceful. Just
Yeah.
because it's quiet doesn't mean that it's peaceful.
Right.
And that's the best you can
Here's
feel.
my
Quiet over peace. That's
Yeah.
his favorite saying.
I said that to her a long time ago. She had no idea until we actually started looking into communication, and that falls into play. I didn't know what I was saying at the time. I just was expressing kind of the atmosphere like you just did. It's quiet, but there was no peace. Peace is a place of rest. Quiet is just
Quiet.
that sound right there that we didn't. There
It's
was
the
nothing.
absence of noise.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
because peace requires resolution.
Yeah.
Peace, it sounds like peace requires violence, and it does, but peace reaches a resolution. Quiet ignores it. Quiet hides.
Well, peace requires that you
Yeah.
look at what the problem is
Right.
and address it. You
Right.
can't
Yeah.
just sweep it under the
Yeah.
rug.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you just have quiet. So
Yeah.
and that's exactly what we discovered as well. Was so many times we go through the motions. We're dealing with the situations around us, and we forget to deal with us,
Mm-hmm.
and we become secondary to everything. And you just actually do say, "Is that all there is?" but you don't even know enough to say that until
Right.
after someone points it out, and then you start thinking, well, why did you show me that? Because now I got stuff to work on.
Well, that's what
Ignorance is
I was gonna say. So that was what because one of the things that that we had was when we started growing and making changes was because let's face it, it's really easy to blame the other person.
Sure.
I mean, you're either going to blame the other person or you're going to take all the blame and think the other person is
I'd never
perfect.
do that.
I mean, some of us are
And-
perfect in a relationship.
Yes,
Right,
we
you
are.
and I
I know,
We're
but
perfect. These
but
guys.
the reality is, it's it's both of us. So would you say that once you started communicating, your eyes were opened more about who you were and who he was, and then vice versa? Because I know for me, it totally changed the way I saw him and the way I saw myself and how I needed to address him. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
I was a little bit the opposite. I wasn't. I don't think someone that blamed. If I did project anything onto her, it was basically out of my own self-condemnation. I always very much felt that I was the one to blame. Like that I was, because I've had struggles and personal things go on, and very much thought that I was the problem. And so that's why I avoided really addressing our issues, is because I kind of knew where it was going to lead. I knew that it was going to be a big season of self-discovery, and that it was going to require some independent counseling. And quite frankly, that was scary. I wasn't sure what I was going to find.
Right.
I also had the fear of like, what if we do this and it doesn't work? Because counseling is like the last resort, and if that doesn't work, then this is hopeless. This is broken, and it's not going to get fixed.
Right.
And so I very much thought it was my fault, and that if we do, seek help, and it doesn't work, then not just we're hopeless, but I'm hopeless.
Yeah.
I'm too broken to fix.
Because you want this to work.
Yeah.
But would you say that through this, because one of the things that I had to do, or he had to do, was I did a lot of the blaming so I could see, more into myself.
Sure.
But he had to do more soul searching and see that he was more of the problem. You did all the blaming on yourself, and very rarely to her. But now that y'all have communicated and you've grown and you've learned some techniques, are you able to express when you think something is because she's not communicating and she's not stuffing, which is what you said you usually do?
Yeah, that's
Can you tell when that's happening and be able to, or can you at least be open with yourself to be honest with the fact that, oh wait, this is not just me. There's some things that she's contributing to as well.
Yeah, and
Without, not blaming ugly, but
exactly.
just being,
But
taking responsibility.
right.
Especially in the last few months, we've done independent counseling. We've done counseling separately. We've done counseling together.
The same counseling that y'all offered.
Yeah.
Actual counseling.
Right.
And I lost my train of thought.
Where you pick up.
Oh, sorry. So
see how they communicated just then?
my concern was always that if I do address something, that it's not going to be received well.
Right.
It's going to bounce back off on me.
Yeah.
And in the last few months, I have had opportunities to share with her, like, hey, and I don't always do it that night. I know they say don't let your anger go down. The sun go down on your anger.
Yeah.
Well, good for y'all. That doesn't work for me,
Yeah.
And so after processing for a few days, I've been able to open up, and not once has she received it defensively. Not once has she justified or made excuses for what happened. She's like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Like, almost grateful that I brought it to her attention.
Yeah.
Something so simple like we have the diaper genie in there, and like she likes to just change the diaper and then just leave the diaper on the thing.
Okay. I did that.
Close, but no
Birds of a
banana.
feather.
I told her, I was like, hey, this is gonna sound really dumb and really selfish and weird, but like it bugs me.
Yeah.
And she's like, I had no idea it bothered you. She's like, I it won't happen again.
Yeah. He did something like that with me, and that was we were sitting with another couple.
I can
talking-
wait to hear these stories when she starts.
What did I do?
Talking. Well, no.
Have
This
I-
is
then what did I
because
do?
I'm the one that's like, can't you pick up your socks and or whatever. But he was like, so when I finish making coffee in the mornings, I just sit in the kitchen because we're getting ready, going out the door, and I make sure the creamer and all the stuff's back in the fridge, and I just leave my coffee cup usually on the cabinet, but sometimes I put it in the sink. but I don't necessarily rinse the coffee cup out.
You do
Not
nothing.
always. So one
There's
night,
this muddy cup of coffee sitting in the sink.
we were chatting, and he mentioned how much it bothered him, but he brought it up while we were sitting with another couple, just chatting about things that irritate each other. But he's never told me this.
It was a
face
safe way to slide
face.
it in there.
Well,
And
I didn't really
He
know
did.
it was a problem for me until the fly over here told me one day. You
Oh,
know, it's
yes.
those cups that are causing us flies to be here.
no, that's not true. But
I think
anyway,
it is.
but because he said
They
it,
communicate.
Or I could be
I make
making this
sure I do make sure that I rinse the cup. I mean, there's still probably times that I leave it sitting somewhere because sometimes
Kinda
I find
like
them
the-
in my makeup room.
It's like the
Sometimes I
diaper
find them
genie.
next to
How
my
hard is
bed.
it to do this?
Yeah, well, you could go with how hard is it to pick up your socks that you pile up in the floor too.
It's
that
like the
you wait till
toilet
I
seat.
pick
Like
up.
we're supposed to put it down for y'all, but how often do you leave
I
it up
solved
for
that
us?
problem. So.
Mm,
I've
yeah.
actually, I've
That is,
never had a
that's like
problem
so
here.
backwards.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, well, I mean, but
Well-
so when you mentioned that, you were talking about how you said that to her, and she was like, I didn't know it was a problem, so she started fixing it. Same thing with me with the cup. Same thing with you with the shower curtain. I'm like, could you please close it? And you hate it being closed.
You can't close the shower curtain. There's
While
going to
you're
be
in it,
someone
it's
behind it or anything.
No, when you get,
I'm
when
always
you,
looking for feet underneath the thing.
after you take your shower, if you don't close it, and when it's drying, it's all wet. So if
It'll
you don't,
mildew.
it will mildew,
Right.
and it does. And he has a hard time when he wants to just leave it open. He just forgets. But the other times are when he goes to the bathroom, he likes to open it because, well, Freddy Krueger could be
You
behind
could.
the shower curtain. But then he forgets to shut it. I want it shut. And all I'm asking is to shut it. Now, the big thing is, I really
He opens your
only-
shower curtain too. So.
Yeah, he does. I really only care when it's wet. That's my biggest time that I'm just like, we had to. But then, you know what I discovered?
Is this?
I left it open probably as much as he did
Hmm.
because I would go back in there and go, oh, I'm the only one who's been in here. He hasn't had a shower yet.
See,
And then
the problem is
but I realized
when I
but by
close
pointing
it,
it out,
you think
I
it's open,
realized
you open it. So
What?
now when I close it, you're used to it, and you're like automatically correcting it, but you're correcting it the wrong way
no, yeah, whatever.
because I've got it all solved.
One of
Well-
the things that I go ahead.
Well, the point they were making earlier that I thought was most important was whenever we asked, is that all there is? And we're talking about getting to that next level, and you expressed how you felt about it in terms of it could be used against you, so it's something you were kind of like,
Right,
well,
you
I don't know. But you've discovered that in the process, what we all are just talked about was whenever you were to bring these conversations like we're talking about right now, the other person, the partner, is more receptive to it, which encourages you to communicate more and more often and then more intimately. Because now all of a sudden you're moving away from the cups and the genies, and
Yeah.
you're starting talking about the things. Are you ready for this? You're going to start talking about what really matters.
Right.
Right.
Now, that's a sad plug, but that's really how
But
we
it
got the
is.
name
It's
with this
true.
particular
Yeah.
thing. When we started, we were driving down the road when we first were led to believe that we were going to do this, and this is the exact kind of things that what really matters is supposed to be about.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about the family unit, the whole family unit.
Yeah.
From God down, and we tend to go from God to the kids, and we forget about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so as the relationship in the middle is struggling, the kids they've got a void between them and God with struggling parents. So as we see parents growing together, I see that that pyramid working better and better.
The parents don't always know that they're struggling.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, that was what you were
That
saying.
was
It was
our
like, we
biggest
have
thing.
a good marriage. Y'all still dated. You still, you talked every day. You
Right.
didn't fight. So that must be a good relationship. And that's kind of the part that I want. I mean, we've been together for 30 years. Well, 31 now. Not married 31, but we've been together 31. And one of the things that I want to be able to share with younger couples, y'all have been together 15 years. That's about the same time Crystal and Cody have been together as well. And then we've got other kids that's been married for 3 and 4 years. But I don't want them to have to go through that struggle of being
Right.
married 15 years and then going, oh, is that all there is?
Yeah.
When they can start at a much younger age. And that's kind of one of the reasons why we're going to be
Right.
doing, and now here's where we're going to go into the plug of we want to do the webinar and the workshop. But y'all have already been doing this with other people, not with us,
Right.
with some of the same tools. But you believe that it's changed your relationship on how you communicate. You're stronger, you're closer, you feel more connected, right?
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
was really uncomfortable at first. And y'all know, because you do Prepare Enrich, that we'd have homework assignments.
Right.
And some of them, like, I won't give all the juicy details.
yes, right.
But they're uncomfortable
Yeah.
because you've never had that kind of
Like
conversation
active
before.
listening
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Well, not even
Well,
active
no,
listening,
but it's-
just expressing. I'm a
Right.
stuffer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to stuff everything because if I stuff it, there's not chaos. There's peace in my house.
Uh-huh.
Peace. And so I'd stuff
There's quiet
everything.
in your house.
There's
There's
quiet.
no
Right.
peace.
No peace.
Yeah.
And there's
Peace-
definitely no peace on the inside because
Right.
I stuffed
But
everything.
the peace
Yeah.
comes after you do share. That's when
That's,
the peace
but that's
Right.
what she was saying. It's
That's
so
what
hard
I'm
for
saying.
her.
But learning that, and it was so hard to do the exercises. Or,
Yeah.
well, what was satisfactory about
Yes.
today?
Yeah.
And then I had
Right.
to think, like, oh, and what was unsatisfying?
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to tell him what hurt my feelings today or what upset
Yes.
me,
Right.
because what if that's going to set him off? Or what is,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
or it maybe
Or what if
it
it makes
wasn't
him-
anything he did, it was just my
Right.
response to something
Right.
he did and he didn't know about it. Or,
Right.
Well, how many
Or-
times
and
have
then
we ever
how
stopped to
guilty-
be self-contemplate? We don't contemplate ourselves each and every day. So these things, I've asked you to start to think about those things, and as you practice it, you become more aware of it as you go. At first, it's like, fingers on a chalkboard.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
after a
it's
while,
hard.
it doesn't sound or feel like that. It gets smoothed out. It feels really good. I find myself at times right now when something happens, all of a sudden, because we've practiced a variety of different things, that my response, not my reaction, my response, that's the first thing you learn,
Mhm.
is in my head before it makes it out here, or my body language, and I correct it in the neuron level up here,
Mhm.
and I receive it or I project it differently, and it saves the situation. Whereas before I might have thought or acted or said something that might have made the situation less productive.
Well, that's like
Right.
when Preston wants to share something with me that I might not want to hear, something he's struggling with or something he's going through. Knowing in advance that he's sharing this vulnerable thing
Right.
with
Yes.
me really determines and helps to navigate my response to it. Is that, okay, this is hard for him too, and he doesn't like this either,
Right.
but he loves me and he wants me to be a part of it because we're a team, and that
Yeah.
really helps. Like,
But
Right.
that uncomfortableness always leads to a new level of comfort. That's kind of
leads
the
to
growing.
intimacy.
It
Yeah,
does.
yeah.
And because you treasure it so much more.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine as you grow and your kids get to the age when they are you're empty nesting. That's oftentimes a problem.
Oh,
Many people
hallelujah.
realize, oh my gosh, I don't
Hey,
even know who you
will
are.
cry.
Oh, I know
You
I
know,
will.
But at least you will have established a strong family unit, stronger than you ever would have dreamed
Right.
of, and that connection will jump that chasm that you have that's there seemingly, but it's not, because you're still going to be connected in so many ways because of the things
Well,
that you've
and
learned.
we didn't even have
brought
that.
into your
I'm going
family.
to bring up the empty nesting thing because it like to have absolutely
I
put
remember
me
that's when we
6
first
feet
met you.
under. I was just like, oh my gosh. And we had a good relationship. I mean, trust me, there was still some stuff that we were dealing with, but at the same time, we were pretty solid. We were friends, we hung out, we did all the things. It wasn't two people really having to learn each other, and it's still. So I can't imagine not having him there in that relationship and having my kids grow up and move away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like, I don't know how I would have dealt with that, because the way I went through it, and I know y'all can laugh at me if you want, but I mean, I still have, every time they move or do something, it's a whole new ball game of tears for me, because it's just like, oh, here we go again. This empty nesting
But
doesn't
imagine
stop, you know?
That same relationship, you had a relationship that hadn't grown. It still was wondering,
Right.
hadn't gotten to the point where they're like, is this all there is?
Well,
Or
that's why you
they're
see,
at that
but that's
point?
why you see so many divorces at 20 and
Well, that was
30
my point,
years,
is-
because they were only there together because of kids, and they never
Well, because
made
everyone's
that work.
relationship in the family unit's kind of like a thread that ties them together.
Yeah.
Whereas after you've gone through some of this, that thread becomes a cable. And then after that, it actually grows to be like this highway that you actually can communicate effectively and over long distances, and it becomes easier to travel those distances quickly with everybody in your family because of the understanding of who everybody really is in that place. And it's okay to have done things wrong or
Right.
and worked through things, to recognize people are imperfect. but the striving to become better
Right.
is what brings everyone. It's the overcoming in the family, I think, that makes the journey so wonderful.
When we realize, and we need to be wrapping up pretty soon, but there's one thing I want you to talk about in just a minute. But when we realize, I mean, all humans are fallible. I mean, we are not perfect. There's none of us. Jesus was the only one. So if we can quit holding, one of the things I think that I did to him was hold him at a much higher standard. You know,
Pedestal.
he's my husband. He should never, ever be able to do the wrong things, whatever that was for that soup du jour for the day. You know what I mean?
Pedestal, it's like a noose. You take one both sides.
Yeah, and it's like, oh well, you messed up. You know, and so what I've learned to do is to kind of explain to him where I was, which is what I was going to lead into with you. You and I were talking the other day how when I've been able to start explaining to him, okay, we even talked about it tonight, whatever TV show is driving me crazy, I can't watch the show, and it's really, really, really stupid, and I get angry with myself over it. But I'm not mad at him anymore. Whereas a few years ago, I would have been mad at him when he has nothing to do with it.
Right.
And so now I can tell him, okay, you know, I'm a little. So there's two things I'm going to cover real quick, and then we're going to go back to you. But because this is the way my brain works. Sorry. The other thing is expecting you to be my covering, and that was one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight. Is when a woman lets their husband be their covering, and they go to them as a covering and with expectations. You know, when you go to him and you expect him to fulfill the scripture of being your covering and to pray for you and to make sure that your life is taken care of and he's doing what he's been called to do as the man, then that puts them in their rightful place. And then they kind of actually own up to that. What was the expectations thing that you said today?
That unspoken expectations are premeditated resentments.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Think about that for a while.
that's a blog coming. That
It'll be printed for you later.
But my expectations of you being my covering is there's no resentment because I've let you know you're going to be my covering, and you're like, oh, she's expecting me to be her covering, so I'm going to do this. The one last thing I want to cover before we start getting off of here was you told me you learned that sometimes things come up maybe in the middle of the night. You've learned how to deal with that a little bit better to prepare him so he doesn't feel attacked or blamed. What is it that you do that does that?
Yeah, so I always, my friend Renee and I always say that my scenarios that I work out in my head then have scenario babies, and those babies, and so it just spirals quickly.
Spiraling babies.
I get it. I get it. I understand
and part of that is like you need to take your thoughts captive, you know, like scripture, and I get that. But sometimes those scenario babies are popping out way faster than I have time to capture them.
Yeah, you can only get so many in a net.
I'm saying. And so on those occasions, and they haven't happened a lot, but before, I'd let all these scenarios just engulf me.
Right.
And I'd get so upset, but I wouldn't share with him why I was upset. I'd just be kind of
snippy.
Why are you standing over me with a knife?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'd just be I'd be harsh, and I'd be, you know.
Sound familiar?
Quick tongue. Nothing I said was kind. And he'd have no idea what he did.
Right.
And I wouldn't want to tell him because it's like, well, technically you didn't do anything right now.
Yes.
I'm just ticked off about something you did 6 months ago. And,
right.
Maybe we dealt with it.
Or that you might be doing because of what you did 6 months ago. I see this happening again, and I'm already mad at you before it ever gets here.
Right.
Now, freeze frame. We have no idea what you're talking about, so keep going.
And so what I did on this particular night, and something that I found that kind of works for us, he goes to bed at like 8 o'clock because he's like a 90-year-old man. But I do homework, and I'm up until 2 or 3. And so at that point when it's like, I need to tell him how I'm feeling, I can't. He's sleeping. And so I'll text him. And I'll just say, hey, just
a morning
so you know,
text. Those are the best.
But
no, wait a
surprisingly,
minute. It's not a mean rant like I've done.
No, it's a hey.
And another thing.
He's had a couple of those.
It's when it ends with the ... that you're really concerned.
So let her finish.
But it's just one of those texts like, hey, just so you know, this is where I am and this is where my mind's been, and you haven't done anything, but I'm really upset, and so tomorrow I need you to take care of the kids so I can get some time away. And I even put in there, and by the time I wake up, this may have all passed, but I just need you to know where I am.
It didn't pass, by the way, but okay.
Yeah, but did it
what
help?
a wonderful gift she just sent you.
But did you know, but because you knew ahead of time once you read that, didn't it help knowing, so that when you woke up and you're reading this, and of course I know your first response is probably, and I can see him right now going,
this is gonna be fun.
oh yes, right?
Looking forward to it.
But then it could be like, okay, you know what? She needs my help. This is where I'm her covering. I'm gonna go help her, right? I mean, because you know it's not you, or you've done something wrong.
Well, and this particular thing was absolutely in direct relation to something I had done. So I appreciated the heads up, but I absolutely knew I was obligated to to do this. Like I had dug this grave. I had contributed to her spiral.
Okay.
I was the source of it.
Yeah.
And so but it wasn't like I better do this or I'm in trouble. It was just like absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
where you are,
Almost
what
like
are you
taking ownership. Like
Yeah.
you know what? I thought I was off today, but I'm not. I'm watching my kids.
But wasn't it easier though for you to respond to that than just getting up and her yelling or losing it, or something
absolutely. Absolutely.
Because I know that for me, I don't really do the losing it thing as much. I don't have little kids. I'm not in school. I don't have 500,000 things that I'm doing. I do have 500,000 things I'm doing. None of them require me doing anything other than making sure we're fed and bathed. So I don't have all the
And
others.
the shower curtains closed.
And the shower curtains closed and the coffee cups in the sink. That's done. But I mean, so I don't.
Coffee in this.
I don't have
shower.
the as much of the times of losing it, but I do know that if I'm able to address it with him in a fashion where he knows where it's coming from, even if it is something that he's done, but I can very like this is about me. This is what bothers me. I need you to understand.
I think that's the big thing, is
even
taking ownership of your feelings.
it's my feelings, and it is because you've done this. But the reality is, I need you to fix what's in here, and as my covering, that's your job. And then he actually has the right and he gets to do that with me as
my
well.
expectation is out there then. Like this
This is my expectations, but it should make it easier than just not knowing why your wife is in a crabby mood all day.
The most important thing is
what I'm saying.
That he brought me sunflowers and that just made it
Oh,
all.
that's the way to do
It explains
it.
a condition, and it explains to us guys who are like, we only got a couple
Clueless.
hundred words we like to use, but you explain what you want, or what will help, or a direction for us to move in to meet that need.
Right.
And that's what we want. We always ask, what do you want?
Yeah.
What do
Yeah.
you really want?
Yeah.
But we ask that all the time, and this was a way of you taking ownership of it and dealing with it. And I consider that's a highly mature, emotionally mature way to deal with it.
Right.
Passing it on to him, and then that ownership you have back. It's an ownership.
Because
on
you
your
could have
part
said,
or my
"Hey,
part,
well, get over it, chickie,"
because
and you
there's
didn't.
because there's that expectation of your covering. You own that back in order for this to start to reciprocate,
Right.
and that is when you have everything overcoming. That's what we're talking about. These are part of the process of the overcoming of these situations. You're not going to have that problem all the time, especially after you've done that once or twice. And we'll move on to some other different things that we have in our
that's going to
lives.
be a growth
You're not going to be
process.
stuck there with this day after day after day,
Right.
year after year, 20 years down the line. You're not going to have that because you've dealt with it now,
Right.
and the solution has already been ironed out.
But the nice part is, what I'm going to follow up with that, and then it is time for us to start getting off of here, was that, okay, so you've learned this is what I've noticed with us. We've learned communication techniques that's changed, and we're like, wow, this makes it a lot better, and I'm learning my spouse more. It's creating more intimacy. And then you'll notice, and I'm using this as an example, because y'all are in the new first part of this right now. You're just realizing, hey, this is really increasing our intimacy. Our marriage is stronger. Our marriage is happier. We didn't even know that we could have a happier marriage, but thank God it's here. But then what happens is, and this is all human beings, this is what we do, we get lazy and we forget to do some of those techniques and use the tools that we've
We
learned.
know what to do. We're
And
just not doing
then all of a sudden you're going to start realizing there's some friction, and you're going to the first time you might not catch it right away, but after a little bit, because we do things in cycles as humans.
Emotional backsliding.
And I mean, we kind of just get lazy and we forget, and we're just like, whatever. But then you realize, oh wait, why do we have this friction? What are we not doing? Let's sit down and think. you know what?
You
We
begin
have
to recognize
forgotten.
it sooner and
And,
sooner
and
every
then
time.
before, and yes, and
Yeah,
then
it's not,
each
it's not going to be
cycle.
perfect the first time out of the box. You
Well,
go
no,
through a
but that's-
process of maturing into,
Right.
oh, okay. It's
But if
actually
you
part of your
have the
routine.
tools in your toolbox, you just go get them back out and do. I like to use a tune-up. You know, your car needs a tune-up every however many thousand miles or whatever. The same thing with our relationships. Now, if we can use these tools regularly, that helps. Realistically, are we going to keep at them for all the time? Probably not, because like I said, we're human and we just kind of get away from
Yep.
it. But you have those tools to go back to, bring them out, you do the tune-up, you get to move on, and then that time it actually goes to a new level, because you've already increased to this one level of intimacy. You kind of backslide a little bit, if you will, and then, oh wait, we need to do it again. And when you do it again the next time, you're at this other level, and then it just keeps getting better. So then when you're faltering, it's just a little bit of like, because now we're at the point, because we still falter, sometimes daily, but we still, now I can just like, you know, I'm just saying that we still do this, but we still do the, you know, where I can be like, okay, so, and I think about how is it that it's going to get it to him without making it sound like it's his fault, or you know, me not taking responsibility for my actions, and yet covering the topic that needs to be covered without causing a fight. So we don't have to fight anymore. And the reality is, everybody's like, you know, relationships, there's two people in a house and you have two different personalities, you're going to have arguments. That's just life. It's never going to be totally no arguments, because that's just who we are. But we
Like
can make it where it's a
some
little
of the
bit.
techniques that you guys have done. You've got others that you're doing as part of the seminar. You going to talk about that real quick?
I am not. I want y'all to watch my webinar on November 5th. It's actually mine and Todd's, called Tell Me What You Want, What You Really, Really Want. Woo! So that's what we're going to be doing. And then we actually have not just this webinar. The webinar is a 1 hour freebie. And then in November, we have a workshop. There's 2 weeks in a row for an hour or so. And then in January, we'll have the full 4 week. And there are several different tools that we're going to be talking about and teaching. Some of these you already know. Some of them I don't even know as a part of our Prepare and Enrich, but there's things that we've learned and that we are sharing as a part of this. And we have worksheets and workbooks and exercises for couples. It's going to be really good, I think, to help others. But being able to see somebody who's been going through some of these things and applying it to their marriage and seeing a difference makes a big deal, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So...
and it's going to give you a way for you to be able to practice it on a daily. So you don't forget. You know, once you have been taught the techniques, you're like, great, got it. And you're like, nope, don't got it.
No,
You don't
because
have
you got
it until you exercise it on a regular basis. It's a habit.
Well,
It
since
becomes
that's
a
hard
habit.
part.
And since
Yeah,
we're
it is.
talking about it being through the, if y'all sign up for the one in January, we would actually be able to, what would be included in that is some one-on-one, you know, Zoom time or something, couple to help y'all get through some of these. That's part of what's included. And so that's something that we want to make sure we're there to help couples, because that's what we want to do. We want to make sure couples are able to start getting through the hard stuff earlier in life and not later in life. Because it's, I mean, who wants to wait till you've been married 30 years when you can start it at 10 years or 15 years or 8 years or 5 years to be, you know what I mean?
Or pre-marriage counseling.
Or the pre-marriage, all of it. All, yes,
Absolutely.
even back to the pre-marriage.
I always think Preston always says like one of his goals that he wants for us, like on our vision board, if you will. He wants to be married for 75 years. And I thought like, oh my gosh, that's the sweetest thing.
I remember that.
But then as time has progressed, and not recently, but before, it's like, oh, 75 years of this. Like,
Right.
I don't know that sounds all that great. And nothing against him. It was
It's all
just
about
it's
him.
a lot of years.
that lack of communication and that
Yeah.
thought
Yeah.
of, is this really all there is?
Yeah.
This isn't what I thought it was going to be, or it's not what I want, or what I want for him. And now I'm like, yes, 75 years.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
this is going to be
ironic that
awesome.
what 75 years was like, and all of a sudden you drew back, but then you grew back towards it. It's kind of what's neat. The neatest thing about this whole process is, I think a lot of people could be fearful of it in a number of different ways,
we can start
is the fact that it actually is fun. there's places you go where you're like a little scared to go into, but once you get there and you dealt with it, it becomes energizing. I think it drives you to the next level.
Well, for us, of course,
to
this
get
is
further.
what we do. So we are.
He's not flinching, so I don't know if he's on board with me or not.
His nostrils are flaring.
Yeah,
Good sign.
he's like, it's not so fun down here. Not yet. Anyway.
Well, I was just gonna say, like my grandma always says, our family, we put the fun in dysfunctional, and that's why.
But you know,
this
that's
is-
everybody out there. There's nobody that's perfect.
And
This
they don't
is-
always put the fun in it.
This is
Yeah.
so necessary because
Yeah.
every couple has their things.
Yes.
You have to stay off of Facebook and Instagram and comparing your life,
Yeah,
your
yeah.
marriage to what you see
To their highlight reels.
to their highlight
yeah,
reel.
because they are not putting anything out there that's
The
real.
truth of the
Yeah.
matter is, the better they're doing on Facebook, the worse they're doing in real life.
Yes.
And that is across the board.
Yes.
And I
Yep, I totally, yes, and there's so much I would have to say about that, but we are at my
That
time
is for
limit,
another
so-
another
Yeah.
time.
oh, that's all. We don't have enough time.
We
Oh,
do
he's just
not.
now. He's just now. We'll bring him back because he's just now getting really good.
So we
See
thank
y'all tomorrow for
y'all.
lunch.
Yeah, thank y'all for joining us, and we're so excited that we got to have our first one with Preston and Megan. Thank y'all for being with
Thanks
us.
for having us.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Go Tigers.